Welcome to Digital Health Talks, where innovators and changemakers share how they're transforming healthcare through technology. Join Megan Antonelli, who will be shining a light on the good things happening in digital health.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Digital Health Talks. This is Megan Antonelli, and I'm excited to introduce Raju Joshi, a healthcare leader with over 3 decades of experience spanning academic research, healthcare system delivery, biotech, and digital health innovation. She is an entrepreneur currently focused on Cogensus, a pioneering platform that addresses social determinants of health by alleviating loneliness and preserving legacy through AI-powered conversations. Her personal experience with family members in 2024 has brought a unique perspective to today's discussion, and I'm excited to talk to you. Hi, Raju. How are you?
I'm great, Megan. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm really excited about talking to you.
Yeah, it's so great to meet you. I feel like we've had a similar background. I think going, sort of the payer experience, PBMs, health plans, and then pharma side. My trajectory has been similar. And then I started in academic research, worked in, events for payers, the payer side, worked at Kaiser on the payer side for a bit, and then did pharma. So I am sure our paths have crossed through that. But tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to Cogensus.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for that intro. I have been in the healthcare space for over 30 years. I have a background in biomedical science and epidemiology and health administration. Worked in a variety of different sectors within the industry. I have experience in academic research, as you mentioned. The payer sector was with Deloitte Healthcare Consulting for about 6.5 years. Went to Medtronic and Amgen, was at a startup, had started my own startup, and joined Cogensus about a year ago, kind of serendipitously, to be honest with you, because I was going through, or my family, I should say, was going through a lot of change. We unfortunately lost 2 senior members of our family, and just at that time, I was introduced to Cogensus. Because Cogensus was working on a platform to address elder care and allow aging in place with dignity, which was very important to me because I had just experienced that for with my mother-in-law, whom we lost in February of 2024, and trying to care for my grieving father-in-law who had lost his wife of 60 years. And then 2 months later, my father fell ill, and we lost my dad on Father's Day, and my mother was not prepared, nor was I prepared for any of that. So it was at times chaotic. More often than not, we were just sad and trying to figure all of this out. My daughter was applying for law school. I was working. I mean, there's just so much going on, right? So Cogensus just felt like the right place to be, because it's addressing a topic, I think, that not only I would have benefited from, but I actually may be a user of at some point in time in the future. And sharing this story with, a lot of my friends as I was going through my own grieving process, seemed to be more common than not. We're all in our 50s, and we're all in that sandwich of caring for aging parents and raising our children. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's how I came about.
Well, I think it is. It's such. I've always felt as we kind of go through our lives and our experiences, and we become different patients in those phases, and certainly supporting different patients, and we see where the gaps of the system exist, and certainly both grieving and aging, and that loneliness piece, is such a big gap. So, I'm sorry that you went through that, but I appreciate your desire and drive to then solve for some of that. Tell me a little bit about what Cogensus does and what the vision for that, and how it will support those in that space.
Yeah, thanks. So Cogensus is an AI-enabled platform that aims to increase, communication across the care team as well as with caregivers. It intends to increase agency that a patient has about their own lives and their care, and it increases connectedness with the patient in an effort to solve loneliness. So, or reduce loneliness. We're not always going to be able to solve it because that's loneliness is a like feeling that a patient has about how lonely they feel, whether they feel connected to someone or not, even if they are physically not alone. They may not be isolated physically, but they may certainly feel lonely. So we hope to give them agency through an AI-enabled platform that enables them to speak about their perceptions, attitudes, anything really that they want to talk about, and then provide that information to their care team and to their caregivers so that the care team can make more informed decisions about their treatment and that caregivers can care for their loved ones in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like it's both, kind of tackling loneliness from that mental health element of it, where we've heard so much about the detriments of loneliness as we age and how that can impact our health. Certainly, the Surgeon General has talked about that, and there's been a lot of research on that. But then also engaging with the care team to make sure that there's a connectedness there that can be hard, perhaps for some elderly or some elements of in terms of social determinants, in terms of social places that they are, that can be harder, whether it's rural or less connected places. So tell me a little bit about that and the research that you guys are doing in that space.
Yeah. So social connectedness, social isolation, and loneliness is something that we are really focusing on, loneliness in particular. We are a product that is in development. And so our intention is to work with providers and with patients to capture, using validated instruments, capture information about how lonely a person feels. And we hope to address that by encouraging engagement with this AI platform. Sometimes patients who live alone or people who live alone, and that's about 25% of the population over the age of 65 who's living alone, is only interacting with their care team. That's their whole interaction. And so their whole life is centered around like my medication and my next appointment and things like that. What we are trying to study is how will loneliness affect your mood? How can it affect some of the cognitive health, or some cognition and cognitive health issues that you may be encountering? So it could be some memory recall. It could be some verbal semantics and acoustics types of parameters and or issues. And so we're trying to study that in patients who are currently lonely or at risk of loneliness. And we will build on that as we go through our product development cycle.
Great. And as you're looking at kind of where this is going to fit into the care path, as well as sort of who your customer is, what are you looking at from that perspective?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And so, again, as this will evolve as we continue to study how the product is engaging patients, who's using this product and how they're using this product. But initially, our intention is to go work with the clinical teams at provider groups and or hospitals and or senior care facilities and work with patients who may be at risk of loneliness. We think that this is a solution that can help solve a lot of identified problems, but we're going to take a stepwise approach to that. And so we'll start with the elder, start with patients who are at risk of loneliness, for loneliness, and then move on from there.
Right, right. And then, in terms of kind of the technology of it, what does it look like? How does it interact with other applications, other systems, obviously the EHR?
Yes. So we are an early stage product design at the moment. Our intention is to build a product that will be mobile enabled, tablet enabled, and computer enabled. A patient would interact with it, or a person would interact with the product by speaking into the AI platform. Initially, there will be a series of questions just to kind of get to know the patient a little bit more, better understand what's important to them, what their life events were like. What their preferences are. And then through a series of conversations, and of course, the more you engage with the tool, the more refined the algorithm becomes, and it gets to know you better. The patient would interact with that product, and then the care team would be provided insights around topics. So the topics of conversations would be transcribed, but again, coming back to some of those patterns on mood, memory, and verbal communication, we would be providing some analytics around that. Oh, this person has recorded or has expressed, feeling down. They may not use the word depressed. They may or they may not, and we're certainly not focused on depression and anxiety, but they might use some of these words. And I think that it's important to highlight that to a care team so that the care team can come in a contemporaneous manner and address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned also, being, that we're sort of in that sandwich generation, right? Where we are both, taking care of and hopefully watching our parents age, and if not helping them grieve. And then on the other side, of course, with our children and sort of lots of responsibilities. But what it comes down to is what about the how does the caregiver benefit from this? How do they engage with the Cogensus tool? Do they have access? Did they get notifications? Because I think I hear from so many of my friends who are, going and doing everything that they can to make sure that their parents aren't lonely, whether it's through phone conversations or in-person visits and all of that. But then there is that, the struggle with how you engage with both their clinicians, their caregivers, but also, almost a permanent monitoring thing. Mm-hmm. So is that part of the vision? How do you see it working with caregivers?
Yeah, I mean, the demands that are placed on caregivers is enormous. I've experienced it firsthand, and I know friends of mine who've experienced it firsthand as well. And so we just can't be everywhere all at once. And, sometimes conversations are missed depending upon our parents' cognitive health. They may have moments of alertness. They may be, sleeping a lot of the time. And so, we just may not be there physically when, to capture their mood, or to capture their frustration, or to capture something that's happening in their life, or a memory that they're recalling. And by the time we speak with them, maybe it's at the end of our day, because that's the only time we have as caregivers is after dinner, perhaps after work, then dinner, et cetera. We give them a call. How was your day today, Mom? And the answer is always, or more often than not, oh yeah, fine, nothing new. But we've missed that opportunity to engage them on something that was important to them and may have been relevant from a clinical standpoint. She may have been administering an insulin shot or some medication and might have expressed, frustration with that, or They may have talked about, gosh, I am so tired all the time. I am so sleepy. I mean, and that could be a sign of disease progression, or it could be a side effect of a medication that they're on, but unbeknownst to them, it's a side effect. They don't know. They just are doing what their doctor told them to do. And so if there's an opportunity as a caregiver to understand that, then we have an opportunity to then take that information and parlay that to the clinician, right? Or the clinician can hear it directly as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
You're listening to Digital Health Talks. When we return, we'll continue our discussion on how technology is revolutionizing healthcare delivery. Stay with us to hear more insights on creating sustainable, patient-centered digital health solutions.
I think there's so many points at which we can be kind of capturing that information. And, from the sort of application of the AI is the vision that obviously large language models, the conversational part of that. But what about the analytics? Is there some level of report out that comes to the caregiver? Is that built in? Is that part of the vision?
Yeah, so part of the vision is to have a dashboard for the caregiver to better understand what the patient talked about, what their loved one was talking about in the course of that day. And it could be something it could be I know towards the end of my dad's life, he kept talking about his childhood. And, that was really interesting, but and there were stories that I'd not even heard of before. And so that improved the connection between myself and my father. But if we had had an opportunity to make those connections when he was healthy, that may have enabled us to better understand his attitudes towards his care. It would have given him agency so that when you're interacting with the AI platform, the more you talk to it, the more we'll learn about what's going on. And the caregiver will then be notified about, hey, Dad talked about our dog Tommy today. Well, I haven't heard about our dog Tommy. Tommy was my childhood dog. I'm in my 50s. So this was my childhood. That was a long time ago. I haven't heard my dad talk about our dog for ages, but for some reason that was important. And then I can kind of, maybe when I engage him, instead of asking him, hey, Dad, how was your day today? It would have been something like, hey, Dad, remember that time where we took Tommy camping with us and he jumped into the lake and we didn't know if he could swim and we were all worried, or, whatever the story is.
Right.
But it improves the quality of connection, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can see that for sure. Both with my grandparents and with my parents, that the storytelling as continues and grows as they've gotten older. And
that's exactly. And that's the whole premise behind Cogensus, is to enable storytelling and use that storytelling as a means to improve communication, improve agency, and improve connectedness, and improve the communication with the care team so that they understand who the person is, and not just what the condition is that they're treating.
Right. And that communication and that consistency of communication between both the caregiver and the patient is an important one. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, kind of where you are in the stages of this. Are you guys looking for investors? Are you piloting? Where's the, where are we? And how can our audience help?
Well, we are in a pre-product stage. We are in early stages of development. We are raising funds. We are in a $2 million fundraising drive at the moment, and we have raised half of that. So we've raised $1 million. We're looking for the last $1 million at this point in time. That money will be spent towards product development efforts. We have received letters of interest from folks that are with payers and with providers. So we know that, and patients as well. So we know that there's a lot of interest. We have developed our clinical strategy. So we are getting ready to, once the product has been developed, deploy that out into a variety of centers. We have a development team that is ready and waiting to go. And so we are hoping to build and launch this product more, closer to the end of this year. We also have plans to expand in Asia at a later time and we have a lot of interest there as well, because this notion of loneliness in the elderly is affecting a number of different Asian countries, in particular, South Korea. And so we are looking to advance this technology there as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Well, that's really interesting. In terms of the language and translation, I imagine there's a lot involved there as well.
Yes. In fact, we are looking to translate this product into 7 languages, and to operate in California, we need to do that, and we want to do that because we think that this is, loneliness is an issue that disproportionately affects many marginalized communities, and so we think that there's a huge opportunity to really help people that are of, minority and or marginalized communities.
So we always like to talk about what's good in healthcare. Sometimes we can talk a lot about the gaps or the missing elements, but we like to always end on a positive note. Lately, that's becoming, a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Well, and we're all problem solvers, right? So
we are problem solvers.
We fixate on what's the problem and what can we do to solve it.
So when you look at kind of the landscape right now, or even, recent developments, what are you most excited about? And it can be about Cogensus, or it can be, more broadly in healthcare. Some sort of what's good.
What's good? You know what? I love that we get to be a part of an industry that is so focused on benefiting people. That's my life's purpose. I love it. I want to make some, even a small contribution to better lives of my friends, family, and society. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good stuff going on out there. In this environment that is a little, let's just say tumultuous at the moment. But there are a lot of really, really, really dedicated people that are focused on doing good work. So there's a lot out there. I would say I am particularly, obviously biased, but interested in what Cogensus has to offer. I think giving people an opportunity to address social determinants of health is a huge unmet need. I think and I've had the good fortune of working with brilliant scientists and brilliant physician scientists who are out there looking at the next immuno-oncology product or the next CNS product. And I have no doubt that they will make great strides in those therapeutic areas. But I think that there is a huge unmet need and an opportunity to address all of the social drivers of health that can impact health outcomes almost as strongly as some of these, biotech and medtech innovations and interventions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the most exciting things and areas of innovation where AI has really been able to kind of move that needle in a really positive way. Because in some ways it was an area that everybody knew was a problem, but it was hard to fund. It was hard to find, the motivation or the right alignment to make things work. But what AI is doing is making a lot of it a bit less expensive, a little bit easier to manage, because if you had a person doing all of this, it would be really hard, but you can do a lot more.
Yeah, and we really want to augment our teams. We won't be replacing them, but we really want to make it a little easier for them. I mean, coming out of COVID, our care teams were just exhausted, and they continue to be, um, you know, positioned for a lot of demand being placed on them, right? So, to the extent that we can maybe give them insights to their patients' needs in a way that can provide information and not just throw data at them, that's really what we want to help focus on. We don't want to just be another data gathering tool. We want to really help provide insights that the care teams can take action on. And it could be something as simple as adjusting a medication. It could be something about as simple as, having an understanding that a patient is not taking their medications because they just don't want to give themselves a shot. That happened to my dad. And, I didn't even know that. And we just couldn't figure out what was happening. And of course, we just didn't have a lot of time with him. We just, he got sick and a month later he passed. And so we were just trying to figure out what was going on. But there's a lot of good that's coming out of all of the work that we're doing collectively as an industry.
Right. And it's that balance. I mean, obviously the care team, does everything that they can to get that kind of information. But in a world where time constraints exist, resources are not unlimited, things are missed. And where there is this ability to capture more and, collect more, and also at the same time, do it with some empathy and do it with some entertainment elements or however it is, it becomes a very powerful tool. So
I agree.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you, Raju, for joining us. I really, I'm excited to see, how your work at Cogensus develops and the product when it's on the market and available. And I really appreciate you talking about kind of how the insights for this technology can address the social determinants of health and preserve meaningful kind of patient engagement and information. Let our audience know a little bit how to contact you and follow up.
Yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn at Raju Joshi is my name that you can find me there. You can reach me through Cogensus at raju@cogensus.com. And I would look forward to hearing from folks listening.
Well, yes. Thank you, Raju. Thank you, listeners. For anyone interested in learning more about innovative approaches to healthcare technology and more female founders' stories, please join us next week as we continue our exploration of transforming patient care. This has been Megan Antonelli with Digital Health Talks, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Digital Health Talks with hosts Megan Antonelli, Janae Sharp, and Shahid Shah. For more insights on healthcare innovation and a deeper dive into today's discussion, visit healthimpactlive.com. Join us next week as we continue exploring the technologies and strategies transforming healthcare.